Bone whispers stress signals directly into your nervous system. You might think movement just builds muscle, but what if the density of your bones is actually regulating how calm you feel? Imagine bone not as inert calcium structure, but like an intricate biological radio antenna that detects pressure changes in your body. When you move correctly, it sends precise biochemical data back to regulate anxiety and systemic balance. This process, which we call mechanotransduction within specialized cells called osteocytes, fundamentally links mechanical load directly to autonomic tone, your internal peace dial. It means how you walk or bear weight is not just structural maintenance, it is a direct form of conscious state regulation. The true secret is not just moving, it's how precisely you move. Think of your body like a finely tuned orchestra, and erratic movement is feedback noise drowning out the signal. What research shows us now is that specific patterns in walking, what scientists call gait variability, are not random motions. They are minute structural conversations being sent directly to your central nervous system about stability. When you introduce controlled variations into how you bear weight, you give those proprioceptive pathways a high-fidelity input, like tuning an antique radio dial perfectly. This fine mechanical precision forces the autonomic system to calibrate its response, shifting it towards greater vagal resilience instead of chronic fight or flight reactivity. The feedback loop is even deeper than we realized. It is not just about calming the nervous system. Your bone structure becomes a fundamental dial for managing systemic stress responses across organs and hormonal systems. The signals osteocytes send are not limited to heart rate regulation, they also subtly modulate endocrine balance, like cortisol release patterns during exertion or rest. This means optimizing how you load yourself is fundamentally changing your internal chemical environment, which means something nobody expected for sleep quality or resilience against inflammatory states. It reframes movement from simply an exercise choice into a precise biological tuning mechanism for whole body chemistry and state control. The deepest mechanism involves how your central nervous system processes this bone input. The body does not just register pressure. It interprets the fidelity of that mechanical data to assign a stability rating to its internal state, almost like an automatic threat assessment. Imagine if your posture was constantly updating your brain on whether you are in danger or safe harbor. High-fidelity proprioceptive signals from controlled loading essentially convince the nervous system there is no systemic instability requiring fight-response readiness. But this link is not absolute. Studies suggest that chronic stress might actually blunt how effectively bones can communicate these calming structural cues back up to your brainstem. The signal path may degrade under load of psychological pressure, forcing us to ask, are we overloading the feedback loop? You need to see what happens when that pathway fails completely next. What if that structural feedback failure is not just a problem of feeling stressed, but a cellular malfunction? When the osteocytes receive chronic noise or poor loading signals, it starts affecting their energy production directly. Think about every cell having tiny power plants inside them. When those mechanosensors are misfiring, they impair mitochondrial function deep within bone tissue itself. This goes beyond simply losing density. This is systemic metabolic inefficiency at its root level. The signal degradation means your structural blueprint fails to correctly inform how efficiently you are running on the cellular fuel scale. And here is where it gets even stranger. That poor skeletal communication does not just stay locked in bone maintenance protocols or energy supply. It begins to subtly influence peripheral vascular regulation through a completely separate, yet linked, signaling cascade. But this cascade, the one linking structural issues to circulation, suggests something far more profound than just a simple side effect. It implies that mechanical integrity is not just feeding information up. It is actively governing systemic command centers. Consider your entire body not as individual parts, but as an intricately managed air traffic control system. We previously thought load was like reporting weather conditions. But the emerging data suggests bone loading might actually be setting the runway clearance parameters for every organ downstream. This is not just a signal degradation. It is suggesting structural input dictates baseline metabolic set points, fundamentally influencing how your body decides whether to operate in survival mode or maintenance mode. If the mechanics are telling one story while the vascular system hears another, what does that tell us about control? We need to look at where this deep regulatory authority truly originates next. So what does all of this signaling complexity really tell us about control? It means our skeleton is not just holding us up, it is setting the fundamental operating parameters for our entire system. If you want to move past simply feeling better and start engineering systemic resilience, the verdict comes down to precision over brute force. Stop thinking purely in terms of weight lifted or time spent moving randomly. The data shows that intentionally optimizing your controlled functional loading patterns, that specific quality of movement we discussed earlier, is how you send high-fidelity stability signals into your autonomic pathways. You are tuning a biological radio, not just cranking the volume on exercise. The single concept reframes physical activity as direct somatic engineering for optimal baseline state. The full research archive is at jmthomasofficial.com. We have mapped a direct communication highway from calcium structure straight into your autonomic command center. This shifts how we view physical input entirely. It is less about training and more about calibrating foundational operating parameters. The practical takeaway is not finding harder workouts, but radically increasing the fidelity of movement you already do. Pay attention to micro shifts in load during simple actions like climbing stairs or standing at a desk. That precise quality of weight distribution is your high-resolution signal generator for stability and calm. Understanding this loop means moving beyond simply managing stress. It becomes active somatic control. The full research archive is at jmthomasofficial.com.